So at this time, I'm going to call the school board meeting into session. It is Monday, April 15th, 2019. All board members are present. And if we could have Mr. Foster do the flag salute, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. If we could have our opening statement, please.
We would like to welcome you to our board meeting and thank you for attending and supporting the work of the Anchorage School District and this board. The board thanks students, parents, teachers, staff, school business partners, and the entire community for your investment in our district with your time, your talent, and your tax dollars. If you are unable to be physically present for the entire meeting, you may choose to tune in to the Municipality of Anchorage's Channel 9 or YouTube to watch the live stream. Recordings of the meetings are also available through the agenda and board docs.
Thank you. Approval of agenda. Is there anything on the agenda, any dissension with the agenda with any board members? No dissension. Is there a motion to approve the agenda?
I move to approve the agenda.
Is there a second? Okay, thank you. At this time, we'll be looking at our reports, and we have our student advisory board report. I'm kind of curious to hear how things went wherever you went.
Yeah, so our last meeting was this past Friday, and I think it was a really interesting meeting. Most of our high school students were at the Alaska Association of Student Governments, the ASOG conference, and so it gave us a chance to really focus on our middle school students. And so we talked with them about what they would like to see from SAB and sort of where they see SAB going, and then sort of brainstormed events and things that we could do for next year. We also handed out our packets for elections that at our last meeting, which will be, I believe it's May 4th, we will elect the next year's president and then the student representative elect, so that next year when we return, we will have at least a few members on the board to sort of lead things in the right direction until we elect the entire executive board at the second meeting.
Thank you. And your last meeting will be May 4th. All right. Board committee reports. Do we have any committee reports? Finance didn't meet. When's your next finance committee meeting? November 18th?
May 6th. I may have forgotten.
Okay. Sorry. And the next communications?
This Wednesday at 9:30 a.m.
Okay. And compliance?
Governance is at Wednesday
sorry.
at 8:30.
Okay.
Yep.
All right.
When is the next finance?
Our next meeting, May 6th.
May 6th. Yeah. Make sure your mics are on, please. So at this time, we have public testimony, and I just need to read my little statement, and then we'll get started. So the board welcomes public comments on agenda items, both action and non-action, as well as in general. We value public comment as it both ensures we remain aware of public thoughts, ideas, and concerns, and informs our decision-making process. We have a table front and center with 2 seats and microphones available for testimony when I call your name. You will have 3 minutes to testify, and you may begin speaking when the timer appears on the screen to your left and begins the countdown. When you have 30 seconds left, the number will turn yellow. When the timer reaches 0, please finish your sentence. And in order to provide equity to all that would like to speak, the board asks that there be no clapping after testimony, as it may intimidate those wishing to testify with opposing opinions. Additionally, it's not our practice that board members answer questions or engage in discussion with members of the public. This is your time to speak and our time to listen. The board will consider all information shared by the public, and when deemed necessary, issues raised in testimony will be referred to administration for follow-up. And I think first on our list is, and I'm very excited about this, is stand up, speak out. And we have we have a flyer here, and it, where's my sheet at? Right, it's the Clark Informers, and I'm very excited, guys. And we're not going to give you 3 minutes. You can go as long as you need to finish up. So please come forward.
Hi, we are some members of the Clark Middle School Informers. We are a group of 7th and 8th grade students who inform our audience about important people, topics, and events. The Informers were awarded a $3,000 Spirit of Youth Bully Prevention Campaign grant. These grants are specifically intended to support youth-led projects for middle and high schoolers. With this grant, the Informers will be hosting an ultimate anti-bully community summit on April 27th, 2019 at Clark Middle School from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m.
The main goal of the summit is to promote respect and inclusion, to increase the broad community understanding of bullying and its serious consequences, and to reduce stigma amongst middle school and high school students about reporting bullying behavior. We will offer breakout sessions on topics such as cybercrimes, facts about and the effects of bullying, and testimonials from people who have previously experienced bullying behavior and from people who have previously exhibited bullying behavior. We will also address adult issues by offering topics such as what parents should know about bullying and bullying in the workplace.
We invited local community speakers like our mayor, the ASD superintendent, school board members, school staff, the police department, and other supportive community members. Our target audience for this event will mainly consist of middle and high school students, especially those students who are struggling with their sexual orientation, disability, or race.
We endeavor to share information that is relevant, accurate, and helpful so that people's lives who attend this event will be greatly impacted. We extended our reach to all members of our community since no one is truly exempt from being bullied. We hope that this summit will leave an imprint in Anchorage so deep that it will eradicate bullying behaviors in our communities. Again, we hope to see you at our first Ultimate Anti-Bullying Community Summit on Saturday, April 27th at Clark Middle School from 10 o'clock a.m. to 2 o'clock p.m. Volunteers and vendors are all welcomed. We are the Clark Informers, and bully free is great for me.
Yes, yes, yes. I'm so proud. You guys are just amazing. You always send a special message, no matter what that message is. And I look forward to being there on the 27th and seeing more of this summit and what you're going to be doing. So thank you. Thank you for being just involved and for being students of ASD. We so appreciate it. So our next speaker is Jed Shandy. Hopefully I said that right. Jed? Okay, if Jed shows up, we'll... Next one is Candy Jo Bracken. And Shelley, I don't see Shelley either. Jennifer Ritchie. Oh, go ahead, Candy, and we'll...
My name is Candy Jo Bracken, and I am parent and the Cougar Gridiron Booster Club president. I am here. I emailed you this morning with a copy of the contract, the official request from our booster club, and the Service High School Sports Medicine Athletic Department expectation and policies documents. I'm here to testify to the following to help you make a fully informed decision. We respectfully request that ASD terminate the current contract between OPA and ASD, per the terms in clause number 10 on page 4 by giving 90 days notice of termination. We respectfully request that ASD allows Service High School to make its own school business partnership for their sports medicine partnership, as they have woven this into their education programs along with their athletics department. At the very least, we would like to see this put out to bid to all parties if it must be a one-size-fits-all contract. I have spoken with AFOC, and they are prepared to bid district-wide if needed. Per section 4A, B, C, and D on page 2 and 3, OPA has requested free services of the boosters, PTSAs, and other parent groups, for which we normally receive funds for our programs. These are services that are very rarely provided by ASD at this time and are provided by the parent groups. Per section 4F on page 3, use of high school student athletes in advertising must follow NCAA rules for college admissions. This is not mentioned in the contract section. Per section 7A on page 3 and 4 of this contract, OPA has limited boosters, PTSAs, and other parent groups' fundraising capabilities by forcing exclusion of some of our biggest donors. OPA does not have the staffing in place to fulfill the contract and to keep Service High School's current expectations and policies at the level they are today. If they continue with this contract, they will have a total of 8 ASD schools and 2 other high schools that they cover. In order to keep Service High School at their current level of coverage, they would need to dedicate at least 1 employee to Service High School, if not more. I thank you for your time and your swift action, as we need to know as soon as possible what the next steps will be so the student athletes at Service High School and other high schools in ASD do not lose sports medicine coverage.
Thank you. Thank you. Jesse, oh no, I can't read the writing, sorry.
She's the one that testified.
Okay, that was earlier. James Smallwood?
I must admit that I was very surprised at the last school board meeting that the resolution concerning the governor's hostile budget towards education didn't pass. On top of that, there was no discussion so that the public could understand why each board member voted the way they did. Because we, the public, don't know what the alternative motive was to vote no, I do believe the public is entitled to an explanation as to why you would vote no to a resolution that would have shown, or possibly have shown, a good record if you were fighting for public education. So if you remain silent, then the public must conclude that your vote was strictly partisan and you did not have the Anchorage School students' best interests. The Anchorage School Board's bylaw states that under their powers and duties that the school board's primary goal is to provide each student with an education of the highest quality and keep in his or her capacity to learn. This goal shall be the basic factor motivating the school board's execution of its powers and duties. So please tell the public how in the world you're going to provide each student with an education of highest quality by embracing the governor's budget. Please explain to the public your motivation by voting no, which signals an endorsement of the governor's clear hostility towards public education. Maybe your motivation was based on political pressure, or maybe you're worried that the public rejection of the governor's budget will hurt your political career. If that was the case, then our school board has been partisan, and the political parties have been taking place over the success of our students. We need school board members that are willing to do the right thing, even though the political backlash might be harsh. Correct me if I'm wrong, but student success should be the reason for every decision that a school board member makes. However, if you're on the school board for any other reason than success of students, I would encourage you to rethink as to why you're serving on the school board, because your no vote did not say you were standing up for ASD. Just my suggestion, have some conviction and fight for the students. I understand political pressure, but like I teach my sons, you should stand up for what is right, even if you're the only one standing. because what the governor has proposed is wrong for Alaska. It's wrong for Anchorage, and it's definitely wrong for the 36,000 students that are in Anchorage School District. Remember what Dr. King said. He said the ultimate measure of a man is not where he stands in the moment of comfort and convenience, but where he stands at times of challenge and controversy. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that would like to testify before we move on? Okay, thank you. I believe what we have next is Dr. Bishop, our superintendent update.
Thank you, Madam President. This is a brief update, and I'm going to request Dr. Johnson Strumpler to come forward, please. For the first item, the items going to be covered are Central and Padilla. This was mentioned last week briefly. Just wanted to provide a little update, share good news about the middle school softball baseball program, as well as provide the process for Eagle River update, and then just ongoing news. First, we want to start with Central Middle School of Science and Padilla and actions there.
All right. Thank you, Dr. Bishop. To the board, through the president, I just wanted to update you on where we're at with the combining of Central Middle School with Paideia, and kind of what has happened thus far and what is coming in the future. So just for some reference, Paideia is roughly around 215 students this year, and it has grown since the beginning of the school year by 50 or 60 students. And it's a blended learning format, so students spend some of their time at Paideia and some of their time doing either some version of online homeschooling or just online learning. And so students have a lot of opportunity to work individually, and they're not necessarily at school all the time. So that's just an important piece of the program. So when just looking historically at our district, there's been some feedback from our community that we really should be looking at our resources to utilize them in a better way. When we are looking at Central Middle School, we know that they had at the beginning of the school year a 48% capacity, and so there's really room there to offer services to more students. When we looked at Paideia coming into the district after being a charter school this school year, we were paying rent at a local church downtown, and that lease was costing the district money. So it was a feasible solution for us to blend these two programs for next year as a cost savings, and to utilize our space more efficiently. So that is the basis for why we'd like to blend these two programs and house them both at Central Middle School next year. So just some real basic numbers. Paideia is going to occupy 9 classrooms and 2 office spaces at Central next year. They will have an entrance on the northwest side of the campus along 15th Avenue, and a parking lot that they primarily use that's nearby. So we're doing some very minor improvements to improve that entrance and the lighting around those areas, and make some space available in that entryway for the electronic lock system, and some more minor specifications. And if you want more details on those, I know Mr. Roth has a lot more details on that. But I just wanted to explain kind of our process about how we've combined programs thus far. We started working with our principals at Paideia and at Central in January on this transition, and staff has been a part of that process as well. And there's going to be continual processes that we'll undergo with the staff to make that union a solid one, and make people feel good about being in the same building together and with the 2 different programs. So just a couple of the things that have happened already. There's been parent communication out by both school principals, so those schools have been notified that Paideia is coming to Central. There's also been staff meetings where staff has been notified of that and part of that process. So, and I know you've heard some of the testimony around that. So the other things that are happening are variety of professional opportunities for staff to start working with each other. On May 2nd, the Paideia staff is actually joining the Central staff for some morning professional development. Central has a late start for professional learning community time, and so they're going to be working together starting in May during that time. They'll also, the Paideia staff is also going to come over on the final day of school for their end of the year festivities as a staff. We had each principal this past week visit each staff meeting, so those principals were introduced to the opposite school staff so that they have familiarity with people. We're also going to include Paideia as a part of Central's training in capturing kids' hearts at the end of the year, or at the beginning of the school year next year, so that they have similar philosophy around how they're implementing capturing kids' hearts in that building, and it's taking the same approach with kids. We're going to, there's a lot of foundations committee work, which you've heard about from other staff in the school district. So those foundation teams are going to start blending their plans together. And then they're also going to work jointly on building safety norms, and they're going to start working that with both staffs in early May. The other thing that we're going to be working on with both Central and Paideia is we're going to develop a smaller team of staff representatives. We're looking at 2 to 3 teachers from each staff, and they will be kind of the champions for how we blend the programs together. So they're going to do a needs assessment so that the Central staff needs are addressed and the Paideia staff needs are addressed, and the principals are going to be a part of that process. And then those of us in secondary will also facilitate that process with those teams. So we're doing a lot of different activities to really make that one unison building and making that culture and climate for kids the best that it can be next year. So I just wanted to share some of those plans.
Thank you. Unless there's questions, then, oh, go ahead.
Board questions or comments? Okay.
Great. Thank you, Kirsten. This is a good story that we have Mr. Nerland, as well as a community member, and Kirsten was going to share the other name. I forgot it. I was going to ask her. She had it this afternoon. But generally, just want to speak positiveness. Joe Zabotny and Kirsten Johnson Strumpler are working with a partnership group out in the community to provide middle school baseball and softball at middle schools. It is funded by outside groups to bring this to our schools this year. They asked us last year, and we started a process to do this. Over 400 students are participating. It's an activity, and many of these are the first-time students that aren't in our activities. Clark especially has a fantastic team, I hear, and they're looking forward to that. But the next one, this is baseball. They also offer softball. And basically, again, it is the community coming together to develop youth and understanding that we don't really have a district baseball, softball. It's more of a club sport, but it's going to be taking place after school, and we're just happy to work with them. So it's just a good news story about the partnerships of private and public education. So, go ahead.
I just wanted to say that I spoke to someone. They were having practice over at Clark Middle School, batting practice, and some of these kids have never even played baseball or softball, so it's a great opportunity. I was glad to see it.
Yeah, I also heard that they didn't play formally on teams, but they are really good players. Yeah. So this will be good to have some competitions. So the Eagle River Chugach Schools update, we had some public testimony in regard to busing. That's an issue that we're continue to work on, but just wanted to share with the board after that testimony so that the board feels confident in the process. the organization of the feedback and how to work through the issues and the concerns here forward are that staff and parent community concerns are shared at the school level, given the principal's time to provide input. Some of that is just classroom organization or simple things at the school level. But principals speak weekly with the directors to share the needs and problem solving. The directors then just really problem solve. A lot of these would reach a level of the senior directors or cabinet member, especially when it has some additional costs or major changes. We really look and work together as a cabinet to figure out busing, curriculum materials, things like that. The busing is specifically we're working on the rerouting of that now at the bus barn. But meeting on April at Chugach High School with principals to share more about details of the summer planning. Maintenance is headed over there. So tonight you'll see some looking for some action in regard to fund balance to support some of this work at the schools to make it worthwhile, livable. It really helps. One of the examples was that we went through this process was really in regard to portables. We've had several schools, including the middle high, as well as elementary schools, just wanting additional space while we have space in the buildings presently, space for other activities, whether it's an art room or a science room that were taken over. So we did an assessment. We really looked at the flow of traffic, different things, and we have, it went up this process about the use of it, the need, because we know that relocatables are expensive. They're not only expensive to have, but expensive to move. And then we had to juxtapose that with different needs around the district as well, because we have some schools that are overcrowded. So in doing so, we were able to locate portables that can be moved at those schools, and then that information is shared back down, and we expect that the principals then at their meetings with their staffs to share that and move forward. And so it's a continual process. There really isn't a beginning and an end. It's just to be prepared for the future and making the best experiences at our schools. So I wanted to share that. And then this is already, I believe, old news by now, but last Thursday, the House did pass its budget. They did make an amendment and put 50% of the bond debt reimbursement, which is of concern for our school district, which provides half of the $41 million that we may be short from prior bond debt. And the Senate Finance is in the early stages of debating its budget. And of course, updates will follow. We'll publish that for the board. But that is where we are. And thank you. And that concludes the superintendent report.
Thank you. Are there any questions or comments for the superintendent? Okay. Moving forward on the consent agenda. Yes.
I move to approve the consent agenda. ASD Memorandum Number 147, the Personnel Report, the January 22nd, 2019 Regular Session Minutes, and the February 4th, 2019 Work Session and Executive Session Minutes.
Second.
Members, please vote. And that motion, our agenda is approved unanimously with 7 yeas. And before we move on to our action items, I just want to read a statement here, and it's procedures for action item testimony as follows. An action item memo is first introduced by the Vice President, and if seconded by another board member, I will open the floor for public testimony. If you have signed up in advance or indicated you are interested in providing testimony, I will call you to come to the front table to speak. You have 3 minutes to talk, and you will see a timer on the screen to your left to monitor the time remaining and inform you of when you need to conclude. After all testimony closes, I will open the floor for board discussion, followed by the student board representative vote, before finally calling for the official vote. The voting results will be displayed on the screen to the left.
I move to approve ASD Memorandum Number 150 and adopt the attached resolution supporting National School Nurses Day, which will be celebrated on May 8th, 2019.
Second.
I have no one signed up. Is there anyone that wants to speak on this Memorandum 150? Is there any board discussion or comments on Memorandum 150? Mr. Holloman.
I'm just say from time spent in the schools, nurses do so much more than nursing. I mean, we think of them as doing what their primary duties are, and they do. They're also a counselor. They also feed a lot of kids. They also just become privy to a lot of the really personal situations that our students face and deal with them without necessarily a whole lot of other support. So it's one of those positions where we don't realize everything they do every day, and this small acknowledgement is certainly something we should do.
Ms. Mitchell?
I was going to basically, you stole my thunder. I just can't say enough for what our nurses do throughout the district, and particularly at the high schools where they have 1,800 students, and their confidants, their counselors, their mental health support. And my youngest is actually going to be going into nursing, I think largely because of the influence that the nurse at West High School had on her, and just seeing all the good that she has done. It's just, I am very, very grateful and thankful for everybody in our district, but our nurses and counselors really do a lot.
So I do appreciate nurses too. Having my son, I know sometimes that was a safe place for him to go when he needed him, was just being able to sit there and just knowing that he was in a safe space, and them allowing that. So thank you to all of our school nurses out there. Much appreciated. Student vote?
Yes.
Board members, please vote. And that passes unanimously with 7 yeas.
I move to approve ASD Memorandum Number 151 and adopt the attached resolution in support of Administrative Professionals Day, April 24th, 2019.
Second.
Is there any public testimony on Memorandum 151 at this time? No public testimony. Is there any board discussion? Ms. Mitchell.
I'm sorry. I just, there are so many people who make our schools work and are the glue, and oftentimes they're in the background and we have no idea all that they're doing. I mean, I as a board member couldn't function without our wonderful Katie. And I just think about the person who was the face of West for 20 years, and I think every school has a person like that who always has a smile on her face and knows the students and, you know, welcomes the parents and really makes our schools the hub of the community. So I'm very pleased to be voting yes on this.
Thank you. Any other board members? Ms. Hildy.
I just second that I'm wildly thankful for Katie, and all the good things we do are generally because of her. So thank you, Katie.
Well, and not only am I thankful for Katie, thank goodness, but I'm also thankful for the others in the office that fill in for her when she's not there. Thanks for answering that phone and my call and many other things that you do. Thank you. Student vote, please.
Yes.
Board members, please vote. And that passes unanimously with 7 yeas.
I move to approve ASD Memorandum Number 153 and adopt the attached resolution supporting School Lunch Hero Day, celebrated Friday, May 3rd, 2019.
Second.
Is there any public testimony on this Memorandum 153? Seeing no public testimony, is there any board discussion or comments? You've got your mic on.
Oh, sorry.
Ms. Mitchell, do you have anything? Your mic's on. I was just, okay. All right. All right. Student vote, please.
Yes.
Board members, please vote. And that passes unanimously with 7 yeas. And I should have said this before and I didn't, but I just wanted to say that I pride ourselves that we never turn any child away, that we provide lunch to all of our students. So thank you.
I move to approve ASD Memorandum Number 138 and authorize the reallocation of $196,000 from the Central Middle School Seismic Upgrades Project, $64,000 from the Golden Middle School Water Line Replacement Project, and $55,000 from the Gruening ADA Improvement Projects for a total of $315,000 to support construction of fire alarm upgrades at Stellar Secondary School.
Second.
Is there any testimony on this Memorandum 138? Any public testimony? No public testimony. Is there any board comments or discussion? Seeing none, student vote, please.
Yes.
Board members, please vote. And that passes unanimously with 7 yeas.
I move to approve ASD Memorandum Number 142 and authorize the reallocation of up to $475,000 from general funds to the Capital Projects Fund to replace security cameras and add access control at Shugiak High School in order to improve the security of the campus.
Second.
Is there any public testimony on Memorandum 142? Seeing no public testimony, is there any board discussion or comments? Seeing no discussion, student vote, please.
Yes.
Board members, please vote. And that passes unanimously with 7 yeas.
I move to approve ASD Memorandum Number 135 and authorize the superintendent to dispose of the listed surplus property by sealed bid sale, public auction, or other means as practical, in accordance with Board Policy 3270, sale and disposal of books, equipment, and supplies, personal property, and Administrative Regulation 3270, sale and disposal of books, equipment, and supplies, personal property.
Second.
Okay, is there any public testimony on Memorandum 135? No public testimony. Is there any board discussion or comments? No discussion. Could we have a student vote, please?
Yes.
Board members, please vote. And that passes unanimously with 7 yeas. So at this time we have our non-action items. There's actually 2 items on our non-action item. Are any of these items, does the board request to pull any of these items for discussion? Ms. Hildy.
I'd like to pull both of them. Memo 139 and 140.
Okay. Since that's the only 2, would you like to speak to that?
Sure. Yeah, I just wanted to go through and make sure we you just have an opportunity to talk about it before we vote on it. So in looking at the one for Birchwood Elementary School roof replacement, let me make sure I have the right one this term again. We had 23 invitations sent out to bid and 3 people return bids. Do we have any idea of why the return bids are so low? Or
Sure.
just speak to the climate of construction around Anchorage and what's available?
Sure. Through the president to member Hildy, I'd like to request that Dave Whiting and Tom Finisef please come forward and be delighted to respond. Mr. Whiting looks delighted.
I know. Where are those smiles, fellas?
Look at them. Yeah.
It's a nice day out there.
We can begin with talking about the bids and then the details of the project. Mr. Finisef can share those items.
So yes, ma'am. Through the board president, really the bids are due to the market conditions. We do know that the district has a lot of work that is roofs. And so we are saturating the market with roofs. We're trying to parse them out. We work as a team, under the guidance of Mr. Roth in CP&C and purchasing, working and trying to parse those out as effectively as possible. But we do have a lot of the similar type of work. So really the bids are subject to the market conditions. We do also measure the variance from our engineer's estimate and try to assess what we feel we're getting from the marketplace. On one of them, I think we beat the engineer's estimate by 25%, about 24 point something percent. The other, we were to the negative of 15%. But really, in public procurement, you know, that's we package the projects the best way we know how to get the most competitive bids, and we put them out there and see what the market will bear. But really, you know, we've known that due to the profile of the district that we have a lot of similar projects out there.
Yes, Ms. Hildy.
How do these bids compare to other projects we've had, similar projects? Are they kind of in line with what we would normally expect?
Through the board president. Typically, we have been seeing, historically, I've been tracking the variance from engineer's estimate, and we are often seeing better numbers. But as things, I think, you know, when the earthquake has occurred, we've noticed a constricting. We've noticed, you know, contractors are a little more busy now, and so we've noticed that those margins are starting to thin down a bit. And it may just be that the market, you know, things are changing a bit. But we were enjoying a very, very nice position about a year or two ago where construction market was really challenging, and so they were throwing some very, very extremely advantageous bids at us. But now we're seeing it kind of correct a little bit and getting down to what's a little more normal bids that we're seeing.
Yes.
And then could you just share, it's listed as roof replacement, but can you identify what, you know, more than just shingles on a roof, what this encompasses?
Sure. I'll hand it over to Mr. Fenicev. He can give you an idea of all of the disciplines that would be touched, which you're correct. They're typically not just a standard replacement.
So in addition to just the roof, it also includes drainage assemblies. It includes the ladders, other mechanical equipment, anywhere where you have a roof penetration, whether it be a drainage valve, venting for HVAC. It requires design of that and replacement in many cases. Also it also includes fall protection for our maintenance personnel who are up there working on it, points where they can anchor in and hook in for their safety.
Any other board members? And I know nothing about roofs. Is there any seismic involved in this? Any seismic upgrades involved in this roof?
Through the president, absolutely.
Okay. I didn't see them listed here. So. Okay. Any other questions, comments? And should we just keep these guys up here for the next one?
Oh, my questions were kind of answered with the first.
Okay.
They kind of went together.
Okay, great. Thank you. Okay, if there's no other discussion on the non-action items, we'll move into new business. And, oh, yep, public trust, what? Yeah, new business first. I have so many helpers, thank you. New business first, and I just asked if there's any new business, and then we have kind of a special presentation, but do board members have any new business? Mr. Donnelly.
Yeah, I submitted a board policy change regarding our weapons suspension, our policy, and I would like to see that brought before the full board. I think it's going to be quite a while before it ever get a chance to be taken up by the governance committee, and I think it's really an important issue that we're faced with recently, almost on a every other month basis. And I would really like to see us draw a distinction between students that bring an air gun or a non-firearm to school and those that bring loaded firearms to school. And so I have submitted that to the governance committee, but I'd like to see that put on the agenda for us to deal with as a full board.
Well, if it involves policy, our policy is that it goes through our committee first, and based on the committee recommendation, it comes to the full board. How do, Ms. Hildy?
Well, the other alternative is every time we approve our agenda, a board member may offer to amend the agenda anytime at the beginning of any meeting. So if a board member has their own, any issue, they can make a motion, and if you have 4 people approve it, then it gets added perhaps as a non-action item to that day, that meeting's agenda.
If it gets seconded and
then it has to have 4 votes to be added, otherwise going through the governance process and then the committee referring it back.
Yes, Mr. Duffy.
Actually, since I've been here, the policy's actually been that if more than one board member chose to bring something forward, it was placed on the agenda. When it's taken up on the agenda, then if the board chooses to, they can move it to a committee. But if we've had, the policy's been, if a second board member agreed that they wanted to bring something up, we've been placing those on the agenda.
Well, there has been some controversy about that, and as the policy committee chair, what does your policy say as far as things coming before the committee?
Sure. So I've looked into this because we have had times where it's happened on our board, and the reality is if we use that approach, which isn't Robert's rules, every time the board did something one week, I and Dina could just second me and we could start again the next week and keep going back and forth every week. So as a functional approach, it doesn't make a lot of sense, and I suspect that's why Robert's rules provides for amending the agenda in the way it does. We have done that in the past, but I don't believe that's best board practice, not following Robert's rules.
So what I'd like to see happen is 2 things, if the board concurs, is at this time if there's a second, and if we can open it up for discussion. Otherwise, the other thing is I'd like for us to look at our policies, and I think we need to be a little more consistent and direct on what our policy is on committees and bringing things forward to the board. Because I do agree that has been, if we need to change the policy, let's change the policy. If we don't, then we need to hear by the policy. And I think that is questionable on exactly what that is. And so at this time, if Mr. Donnelly would like to bring that resolution forward, has anyone else seen it? Okay.
All I was asking for it is it be scheduled to be considered, so not to try to bring it forward at this time.
But it's a policy. Is there any other board comments on that?
Or point of information, can we hear what it is? I guess is
Yes, it would draw a distinction between students who bring a loaded firearm to school and those that bring other types of weapons to school. In other words, right now, our mandatory expulsion is the same amount of time for somebody who brings an assault weapon or a loaded firearm with multiple clips as it is for somebody who has a BB gun or some other type of less lethal weapon. And I think that it would be logical and a better policy to have a longer mandatory expulsion time for somebody who brings a loaded firearm, especially with additional clips, to a school.
I'm sorry, do you have it in writing?
Oh yes, it's been submitted to the governance committee, but the information I was provided is the governance committee wouldn't be able to get to it for a long time.
I'm sorry, Ms. Hildy.
I didn't say that we can't get to it for a long time. We just have the superintendent evaluation. That's the only next meeting I have scheduled at all. So there isn't anything scheduled beyond that, but we will have a board reorganization, so I haven't scheduled for meetings beyond that.
Well, my first thought is if this is policy, and that's what it's not a resolution or anything else, it's policy that you want to put into effect, I really do think it needs to go through the committee first, because that's what that committee does, is it looks at policy or any recommended policies, and then those are submitted to the board for consideration if the committee deems them to move forward. In cases where the committee has not put them forward, a board member has gone the other way. But I think at this point, because we are doing a board reorganization, I would like to see that go to the policy committee first. Yes, sir.
Well, that has not been the past policy since I've been a member. The understanding was if anybody brought something up and another board member supported putting it on the agenda, that it was placed on the agenda. And to respond to one argument made by the governance chair, there are other protections to prevent things from just being brought back and back and back. I mean, if it's the same proposal or it's found by the body to be substantively the same proposal, the body can take action and prevent that from coming up again. That's under Robert's Rules of Order also. So I don't think that's a real danger, because this revision of our current weapons policy hasn't been considered by this board since I've been here.
Well, I do think practice versus policy, we may have been practicing that, but it has not been the policy. And so I'd like to see this board start following policy. And I mean, I'll leave it up to the board if they would like to do otherwise, but my recommendation is that it goes to the policy committee. Mr. Foster.
Allow me to encourage the next chair of the policy committee to take this item up in due course and in a reasonable amount of time. And then a second comment would be, I think you want to exercise care with respect to controlling the agenda and requiring 4 votes to move something onto an agenda, as opposed to a move and a second to put something on an agenda. It's been my experience when you raise the agenda bar so high as to require a majority endorsement, you will create tensions that I don't think you intend to create. I think you want to allow and enable the board to have a more open discussion if there's a member and a second who has an item they want to bring forward for that conversation. I think blocking new business items and setting a higher bar will create unintended consequences and tensions on the board that you'll find will not hold you in good stead over time. So I just want to leave you with that and wish you luck going forward.
Ms. Hildy?
I would just suggest, you know, this isn't, I don't have a feeling about this. I'm just telling what I looked up in Robert's rules. If we want to do something different, that's our choice. And certainly if somebody brings something to add to the agenda and they second it, we can discuss it and then decide whether it gets added to the agenda. So everyone has an opportunity, just as now we're discussing something, we can do it at the beginning of a meeting as well. But I agree that we should be more clear on the process, and maybe a memo coming out of governance on, get us all on the same page of what that process should be, or is.
In point of order, we don't have a motion. We just have an idea, which can't be seconded. And if you want to introduce a motion, you can introduce a motion, but otherwise I'd like to move the agenda.
Well,
Mr. Donnelly?
then I would move that the policy change that I have submitted to the governance committee regarding differentiating between loaded firearms and other types of weapons in our suspension or policy be placed on the agenda within 1 month.
I'll second it.
Does that follow our policy as far as the policy committee?
The board can vote now to send a policy review to governance. We have one on patriotism that we want to review, and if 4 members of the board have voted to send it to a committee, then the committee takes up that issue, versus somebody just coming to the committee and saying, I have an idea, then the committee decides. They might talk informally about it and say, well, maybe we want to do this, maybe not, and 2 out of 3 of those people would decide whether the committee goes forward with it. So there's 2 different avenues to discuss things in committees.
So what you're proposing, your motion is to move this right to the agenda, the board meeting agenda, and bypass the policy committee, governance committee.
I would prefer to have gone through the policy committee, but I couldn't get a commitment for a date. And I appreciate that now the position is that sometime sooner, but the original position was that everything was booked up for like the next 6 months. Yeah.
Ms. Hildy?
The position has never been that the agenda has been booked up for 6 months. I've been very clear since I started in January, February, March, and April were all that were scheduled, and we had obligations to meet for time.
So there is a motion on the floor to move this straight to agenda and bypass the policy committee. Is that what you're saying? That's what I understood. Yes.
Point of order.
Okay.
For the last 2 years I've been here, we've had a rule in place that if 2 members wanted to place something on the agenda, that the board placed it on the agenda. This request has been seconded now, and that's been the rule. Now, if you want to adopt a new rule, you should go through the process to adopt a new rule.
I believe it's practice versus procedure. So we have practiced that, but it's not necessarily been our policy. And so my hope is moving forward, this board will be more, how do I want to put it, more in compliance of following what our policies are. And if I'm incorrect, I'll stand corrected, but I believe that all policies should at least start with our policy, our governance committee.
So we are changing the rule now. For the first time, we're instituting a brand new rule, is what you're saying.
I'm saying that rule has not only, it's been used by all board members, and we need to follow the correct procedure in this and no longer practice a practice. We need to be doing what our policy states.
So if your intent is to proceed to a vote on my motion, which was seconded, then I appeal the decision of the chair, because I believe that's an improper ruling based on what we've been doing for the last 2 years.
Ms. Hildy?
Is there anything to cite, a policy I can look at to see this, if somebody seconds it, it goes on the agenda? Because right now all I have to look at is Robert Rules of Procedure.
Right.
It's the only written instruction I have, and when we go off what somebody did, it's not best practice.
We're going to take a brief at ease just to look at the policy and make sure that we're following policy as set. So instead of taking up further time with this, I'm going to accept your, I'm sorry, I can't remember the exact word, your challenge. And I think at this time, at our next policy, our governance committee meeting, we are going to review the policy on this so that all board members are in understanding of what that policy is or isn't. And at this time, we'll move forward with your request.
Thank you, Madam President.
You're welcome. So your understanding is with your recommendation, with your motion, and with that of a second, it'll be on the agenda without a vote.
My motion was to place it on agenda sometime next month, within a month. Yeah. So doesn't have to be on the next meeting, but the intent was either of the next two meetings, whatever it fit the best with all our other business.
So noted. Discussion. But I do challenge our policy, our governance. We are going to take a close look at this, because if we are not following what we need to follow within our committee policies, I want to make sure that that's clear to all board members, especially moving forward with our new board. And we just need to be clear so that these type of issues don't arise again. And that includes me, and we just want to have a clear understanding of what those procedures and policies are. Okay, is there any other new business? Elise, you have something you'd like to present on behalf of the board?
So I just wanted to, on behalf of all of us, say a very, very heartfelt thank you to Miss Catherine Essery. This is her last meeting with us as she moves on. Yes, and so.
And part of the gift is we're done like almost after 8. You have anything you want to say? You know, Dr. Bishop always makes people talk.
Thank you very much to the board, and I will say it's been my great honor to work for Dr. Bishop for almost 12 years, and I've been greatly humbled to be in the Anchorage School District. This is a powerful place with lots of intellect and high expectations for student learning, and I've been greatly blessed to be here, and I'll miss each of you and the camaraderie and the work, and so I'll be looking forward to hearing, you know, all the good things to come. But thank you for allowing me to be a part of this great district. Thank you.
Thank you. The pleasure's been all ours. Thank you. And if you ever get bored, you can always watch those board meetings late at night. Okay, if there's no other new business, is there any public testimony? Final public testimony on anything that you haven't talked about already? All right, with that then, we are adjourned. Thank you.